Hey, how's it going guys? My name's Daniel, aka HashLips, and welcome to my channel where I teach you how to code. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to generate thousands of images, basically artworks, NFTs, generated from a few layers. Now, this is called the Sketchy Ape Book Club collection, and it's very special because it's my collection. All the artworks that you've seen here and that we are going to be dealing with are hand drawn by an artist, then scanned in, and I'm going to show you the process that you can take and also create such a collection for yourself. What makes this collection even more special is the fact that it's created by the very code that I've written, the HashLips Art Engine, that's being used by thousands of collections on the blockchain. Now, if you want to get involved and join our communities, go to this website, sketchyapebookclub.com, and go and join our Twitter, Discord, and you can become part of the community and be ready to come and mint some NFTs. There's a lot more to this NFT that meets the eye. We are creating a book club for people to write their own narrative. But anyway, this is not a shill video. This video is here to show you how to create what I've done with the Sketchy Ape Book Club. Let's jump right into it by starting up and setting up the environment. Welcome back to my video series on tips and tricks on how to use the HashLips Art Engine for different use cases. Each one of these videos are unique, but it does contain this pre-recorded section on how to get started. If you are new, keep on watching. If you have seen it and you've already implemented the HashLips Art Engine and just want to see the tips and tricks, just skip this little bit on the setup. Before we get started, me showing you how to set up this awesome engine that will help you generate thousands of images. Don't be discouraged if you get stuck. If you do, go ahead and go to hashlips.online and follow us on Discord. The Discord channel is constantly growing and there's a lot of devs that will help you out. Also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would really appreciate that, and let me know in the comments right now that you are starting this course. I love seeing that, and also give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. Now that that's all said and done, let's get started with this tutorial. To get started on your generative journey, you have to go to github.com/hashlips. Once you're here, you can simply click on all the repositories that's available. We can go down to the HashLips Art Engine repository, or alternatively, you can go directly to this link up here. We need to download the code, and if you are well versed in Git, you can use this method by cloning the repo. If you are not and you're not a programmer, go down here to the releases section. Click on releases and download the latest version. If you want to follow along with these videos, download version 1.1.2. You can simply go down and click on source code zip. I have now downloaded the zip file of the HashLips Art Engine. Double click on this or extract it with your favorite unzip tool so that you can get the folder like so. When you open this, you'll find that there's numerous folders and files in this HashLips Art Engine. These files are necessary and is part of the Node.js program that we are about to run. The most important files that you're going to be working with is in the source directory. There's a configuration file and this layers folder where we're going to place all of our image layers. This I'll explain later in this video, but for now our first part is done. We now need the dependencies like Node.js as well as an IDE, and we are going to be downloading Visual Studio Code as well. But like I said, we would need Node.js, the framework, in order to run our program. Now we cannot download the latest Node.js because sometimes there's issues with the latest version not compatible to our program. So we are going to make use of the version 14. So instead of 16, go ahead and go to this URL and you can choose for your operating system what you would like to install. I'm going to install this package of version 14.18.1. You are also going to need Visual Studio Code, an IDE which is used to edit code, and it's very convenient to use. So go and install this on your operating system. Once you have installed Visual Studio Code, install Node version 14.18. I'm going to install it by simply clicking on the package, and depending on your operating system, this might differ for you. Going to enter my password and let it install. After installing, we can open Visual Studio Code and verify that we have Node.js correctly installed. I'm going to close this, then go and open Visual Studio Code. This time I can locate where the HashLips Art Engine was saved. Open the HashLips Art Engine folder, and then in the terminal down here, you can simply run node-v and hit enter. You should see that we have now version 14.18.1 of Node installed. Sometimes when you start up Visual Studio Code, you might end up with a screen looking like this and not seeing your terminal at all. What you can do is go to the top panel over here and select Terminal, New Terminal. Then you can run any command in here again and press enter. This is just for if you don't know where your terminal has gone and a way to get it back. I'm going to close all these folders because we're going to discuss them on a later stage. What we need to do now is install the dependencies for our program to run. Simply run npm install and hit enter. What this will do is actually grab all the dependencies needed from the internet, download them in this node modules folder, and in here it would give us the right frameworks and packages to work with in order to run our program successfully. So let this install and give it a few seconds. Once it's done installing, you'll see the output like this. Don't worry if it says warning, this is just due to dependencies that have a mismatch in versions. Next, what we want to do is test out the program by running npm run generate. What this function will do, if I click enter, is it will look in the layers folder over here for all the layers and associated with our config.js file. It will look in what order these layers are structured and see how many it needs to create. You can see down here it's created 1 to 5 images. A new build folder will be created here at the top that contains the images as well as the metadata in this JSON folder of each of these images. The metadata of a file is extra data on what it is. So basically, if you go to this one.json file, you can see that it has a name, description, image, DNA, and so on. It also has a bunch of attributes. If we go to one.png, we can see that these attributes go with this image. And that's because the traits have a cyan eye, it has a white eyeball, it has a black background, and indeed we can see there's the cyan eye, the black background, and the white eyeball. This is needed in the NFT world in order for marketplaces to correctly display what this image is as an NFT. So I'm going to show you how you can generate thousands of images using the HashLips Art Engine. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the application. Now, if you look in the src folder, the thing that you need to concern yourself the most with, or familiarize yourself the most with, if I can say that, is the config.js file. In this file, it contains all the configuration needed to configure what you want to generate. You can read up more on this if you go to the GitHub repo and go into the README file. Once you get here, you can see what each configuration does and how it is used. This is very useful for if you want to play around with very cool concepts that this program offers. In essence, it all comes down to the layer configuration. You will see that there's a layers folder over here, and inside the layers folder, it contains more folders. Each one of these folders are layers of images. Let's go into the eye color. You can see that there's a cyan, a green, a pink, purple, and these are eye colors. We also get the iris, which are just black dots. Then we also get maybe the top lid. which are purple eyelids. Each one of these layer files has a name, a hashtag, and a rarity weight. These weights works by a weight. So for instance, if you have all of these files, you can see that this yellow over here of the eye color has a hashtag 10, meaning that the rest all have ones. Yellow would be most likely chosen between all of these. How you would generally use this program is by creating different traits. These folders inside the layers folder each represent a trait that will show up in your metadata. And this in turn will be used by marketplaces to show what your NFT is made out of. So once you've populated these layers, you would generally go to the config.js file and then go and populate in what order you would like these layers to render. The program will then dynamically and automatically go and select these attributes from the files within it. It would look at the rarity weight and then decide how it's going to build up each image. The grow edition size 2 is the determining factor on how many NFTs or images you want to create. So if I make this 10, save this configuration file, in the terminal run npm run generate, and I hit enter, you will see 10 images being generated. Now you know how to set up the HashLips Art Engine properly and you've seen it in action. This is the end of the pre-recorded setup section in this video, and from here on outwards you're going to learn new tips and tricks on how to use the HashLips Art Engine. Now that the environment is set up, we can go ahead and create some kind of template for us. I'm using Photoshop. I use bright colors like these and I separate them in different layers. For instance, this face mask, the body back here, as well as the background. By separating these masks out like this, makes it easier for us to, on a later stage, do cutouts of the actual drawings. The whole purpose is to take this, duplicate it, maybe replicate it 4 times, and create an A4 template like this. You can give this to your artist and they can go ahead and fill in the details of the ape. In this example over here, these are left blank. We also have a slight tint to indicate where the eyes, the nose, and the lip goes, and then the artist can fill in the gaps. Later on, we're going to use this to cut it out and have a perfect face form. We can also do the same with the body and the fur, where the artist has free range to draw whatever they see fit. After doing this, we're going to scan this in, and it's important to leave dark markers so that we can do the alignment. After the artist have drawn all the artworks, you can bring this back to this template, the one with the colors. Import all the frames that you need, and then once you've done this, scale it up. You need to make sure that these alignment kind of indicators aligns perfectly outside of the frame. This will allow us to easily see that our template fits, but we can still do fine adjustments later on. Once you have done that, you can see that this is a fur layer. So let's go and grab this blue body, duplicate it, and actually bring it up to the top. We can position this right below this image, and then we can simply go and create a mask for it. This is basically cutting the shape out, keeping the original drawings. Now what's cool about this is if we have a face mask and put it on top, you should see it all fit together. And that is basically what I'm going to be doing. And then after that, I'm going to concatenate them like so, take the background away and save this as a fur layer. I'm going to do this for each layer, cutting it out the same way. Then I'm going to come back and show you a way how to batch export this all so that we can use it in our art engine. After you have made the cutouts, you should get something like this. Now I have colored these in and made them a bit more interesting, but the whole purpose is to take a layer like this and a cutout like this and combine them. If we overlap these two, we will get something looking like this. And this is perfect. We want to export these layers in the same format the same kind of size and keep the resolution there as well as the shape. So in essence, each one of our layers should be exported in this kind of cube. And now we're going to do this in a batch. So what you can do is go ahead and unhide all of your layers that you would like to be exported. Then click on File here at the top tabs and go to Export, Export Layers to Files. Once you've done this, make sure that you don't have this trim layer selected because we want to keep the position of each layer the same. Then you can take out whatever this prefix is and find the place you would like to export it, then click Run. This will export all the image layers for you. Let's jump back to Visual Studio Code and head to the Layers section over here. We need to replace our layers with the generic layers that comes with the program. So go ahead and remove all the existing layers in here. Then I'm going to open the Finder, and I've already created my layers, exporting them and then rearranging them in 4 different folders. Rearrange them into the background, face, fur, and props. Now this is important to do, and keep in mind the spelling that you use on these folders will be reflected in your attributes. I'm going to go ahead and drag these over to my layers. Now that I have them in here, I can actually explore how they look and what they really are. So for the background, I've actually have a few different colors, and I've given them some intriguing names, such as pumpkin orange, sand, sky blue, and sunny yellow, and so on. You can do this because this will also show up in your traits. We also have our faces that you've seen being created on Photoshop, some furs, as well as props. Now, these props actually come from the Sketchy Ape Book Club collection that's generated, and I've taken some of these props to use as examples. But that collection actually has over 350 items. So you can imagine you can get quite creative and create big collections with a lot more variants and layers. So go ahead and create your layers for yourself so you have a nice basis to start from. Then we're going to open the src folder and find the config.js file. Scroll down to the section where you can find the layer configurations array, and then make sure that you have at least one object like this in there. We are going to, for now, create about 10 NFTs. So I'm going to set the grow edition size to 10. And then I need to go ahead and create my new layers. I can see that I've got background, face, fur, and props. I'm going to keep to the background, but I need to have the spelling exactly the same, so a small letter B. And then I'm going to think about how I'm going to render this collection. So the next layer that I would like to render is probably the fur. Then I'm going to render the face and then the props, like so. Once I have this, everything should be ready in place for us to run our collection and test it out. In the terminal, run npm run generate. Hit enter and see your collection being created. The terminal will indicate that it's created 10 NFTs, basically starting from 1 all the way down to 10. We can see it in the builds folder that's been generated under the image section. Here we can see how they look. I must say, these look pretty cool. Now, each one of these NFT images will have a Json metadata associated to it. And this can be found in the JSON section over here. So this 1.png links directly to the 1.json. It gives it the extra data around this NFT. And here, as you can see, because we've named our folders and our attributes, we have proper attribute names and values for what this image has and contains. Let me show you some tricks when it comes to the generator. So if you go back to your configuration file, let's say you have a certain configuration that you would like your NFTs to be rendered as. For instance, let's say we would like at least 5 NFTs in our collection to not have props. What we can do is copy this configuration object and paste it in. So if we want 5 NFTs to be generated in a different configuration, we can go ahead and firstly change how many NFTs we're going to generate. Keep in mind, this array always accumulates. So the first 5 will be this, then the next 5 will be this, because all of the NFTs combined will add up to 10, the very last variable in this array. Now, let's say we want a different order. We can, for instance, put the fur above the face. This won't look good, but we can do that. I'm also going to remove the props. Now that I have my new configuration, I can run this again and I can be sure that the first 5 is going to be this weird looking NFT with just fur, and then my next 5 is going to be the proper ones. Let's go into the terminal and run it again. Our images have been generated and we can go and check. The first 5 only has fur and no faces, as well as props. Technically it does have a face, but the face is sitting underneath the fur. We can even decide to add more in a different configuration by duplicating it again, and let's say we want to create 20 NFTs in total. So 5 will be this, then the next 5 will be this, and then the next 10 will be using this configuration. Now to make it interesting, let's try and add 2 props on it. So I'm going to duplicate the props and see what happens. There might be something cool. So we can do this and just run it again so I can show you what happens and how it looks. Take note that this always generates from 1 all the way down to 20. So if you put your rarest ones here in the beginning, people will know that the beginning ones are the most rarest ones that they can mint on the blockchain. That is not cool, but there is something we can do to change this up and make it more random. The double prop ones came out interesting, but sometimes some of the props doesn't work very well because it wasn't intended to be used like that. But you can try that out and test it for yourself. Now, let's say that I do not want this to run in a chronological order. What you can do is go back to the configurations.js file and go down to the shuffle layer configurations. We can turn this simply to true. Once we do that and save this file and run the program again, you'll see that it starts generating from random orders. This is great because it makes it so that people do not know what rarity they're going to mint, especially because a smart contract usually starts in a chronological order. This will mix everything up and give you a totally random feel to your collection. I am going to remove this last configuration because it doesn't make sense to me to have double the props. I might as well just turn this growth edition size 2 to 20 if I want 20 NFTs. You don't have to stick with the low numbers. That's the whole point of this generator. You can turn it up to thousands of NFTs. But I'm using smaller amounts for this tutorial. Now a good question here is, how do I make certain attributes, for instance these faces, more rare than the others? Let's say I love this vampire face as well as the zombie, but I want to make the zombie and the vampire face more rare than the others. We get something called Rarity Weights. And how do we apply that? Behind the scenes, each one of these images already contains a weight, and that is 1. Now it's the default, so if you don't put a weight, it's going to consider it as weight 1, which is technically very ordinary if no weight is specified anywhere else. Let's emulate that. You can add a weight by, in the naming convention of your file, put a hashtag and then 1. This is emulating exactly what the default is doing. But this time we're going to apply it to this whole folder because we want to specify which ones are more rare than the others. Now you can see I've got all of them set as 1. This simply means they have equal chance of being selected when the program decides to pick this layer. Now if you want to make the vampire and the zombie more rare, let's up the weight of the others. Let's make this zip one 10, this one 10 as well, these eyes 10, and then the top one 10. This means that the other ones have 9 times more chance of being picked than the zombie and the vampire. You can also up the weights of certain ones. Let's say we love this thinking one and want this to be picked the most out of everything. I'm going to change this weight to 40. This means that this one has the most chance of being picked, and then secondly these ones with 10s, and then lastly the most rare ones, the vampire and the zombie, with 1. If we run our program again, running npm run generate, we will see that now we have our collection generating in random orders, as well as having rarity weights specifically for the faces. You can go ahead and add these to any of your layers. Another tip I want to share with you is if you go to the Utils folder over here, you will see there's a bunch of utilities that you can use with this program. Let's go ahead and check what our rarity was from the collection that we just generated. How we can do that is by running in the bottom over here in the terminal, npm run, and then rarity. Once you hit enter after your collection has been generated, you will now see that there's a script being exported. It's essentially a log that tells us how rare an attribute is in your current collection that's been generated. For instance, we can see that the trait background, we can see the trait name, its weight, which is by default 1, and the occurrences in the 20 images. We can see that it occurred twice in the 20 images, giving it a 10% out of the collection. Let's go and check our faces. Here is our faces trait, and here you can see they have bigger weights, the weights that we just implemented. And as expected, the trait with the biggest weight basically is now generated 10 times out of 20. The ones with lesser weights, such as the zombie, only appears once. And that's exactly how it works. So you can go ahead and explore the rarity utility for yourself, and it's a nice way and an overview of what your collection has. One more utility that I would like to show off is the update information util. It's this one over here. So basically what this does is if we have generated metadata and we are not happy with the name and the description, and usually we do this to update the image location where we need to replace this anyway, we use this utility to go and update all the metadata after our collection has been generated. This does not regenerate the collection and only updates the JSON files. How you make use of this utility is you go to the config.js file. Here at the top, where you set your collection's name, we can now say this is our new name, and we can just say down here, let's append a bunch of @signs, and we replace this with some kind of URI, usually coming from IPFS. We can save the config.js file and in the terminal run npm run and then update_info. Once you do that, you can see that the base URI was updated to that, our description and image. So now we can see that in our JSON we have the new name and we have our new description, as well as the image URI has changed. And there we have it. Now you know how to generate hand-drawn images with the HashLips Art Engine. There's a lot more tips and tricks coming up in this series, so keep your eye out. It's good to watch all of them because then you'll have a good grasp and understanding of what's possible, and it will answer all your questions to what you want to generate. So stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching these videos. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and a comment. I really appreciate that. Until the next video, cheers for now.